My name is Emily Carter. I'm 33 years old, and I work as a physical therapist in Nashville, Tennessee. The strongest person I've ever known isn't an athlete or a celebrity. It's my mother, Linda. She raised 3 nieces and nephews after my aunt passed away. She worked double shifts for years, skipped vacations, and somehow still found the energy to make every birthday, every holiday, and every Sunday dinner feel special. On her 65th birthday, the people she sacrificed the most for left her sitting alone at the dining table with a takeout container that had gone cold. Then they walked out. They said they had other plans. I stayed. I reheated the food they couldn't even bother to warm for her, lit the candles myself, and watched my mother force a smile that fooled everyone except me. The next morning, someone knocked on her front door. A woman in a navy suit handed my mother a sealed envelope. She looked at me before saying quietly, "You may want to sit down." Neither of us had any idea that everything my relatives thought they were about to inherit had already slipped through their fingers months earlier. If you've ever watched someone spend a lifetime giving everything to family only to be treated like they no longer mattered, then you'll understand exactly why I can never forget what happened next. Let me take you back to the beginning. It was the first Saturday in October. I was finishing paperwork at my clinic when my cousin Brandon sent a photo to our family group chat. Everyone was gathered at a lakeside cabin 2 hours away. The caption read, "Family weekend, couldn't wait to celebrate." I stared at the picture. Every cousin was there. Every aunt. Every uncle. Even relatives who hadn't visited my mother in years. A second message appeared. This one was private. From my Aunt Carol. "Don't make your mom feel bad. We left dinner in the fridge." I read the message 3 times. Not because I didn't understand it. Because I couldn't believe someone actually typed those words. My mother's 65th birthday. And all they left behind was a cold meal. I grabbed my car keys without replying. Something told me that by the time I reached my mother's house, this wouldn't just be another disappointing birthday. It would be the day our family changed forever. I made the 40-minute drive from Nashville to my mother's house in Franklin with one thought repeating in my head. Please don't let her be sitting there alone. The porch light was already on, even though the sun hadn't completely set. My mother always turned it on early whenever she was expecting company. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. The front door wasn't locked. It never was when family was supposed to come over. I found her in the dining room, still wearing the emerald green dress she'd bought for the occasion. She had even curled her hair, something she only did for birthdays and Christmas. The dining table was set for 12. Every plate had a folded napkin. Every glass had already been filled with iced tea. Only one chair had been used. In the center of the table sat a plastic takeout container from a grocery store deli. The mashed potatoes had hardened around the edges. The roast chicken was ice cold. Someone had written, "Happy Birthday," on the lid with a black marker. That was it. No cake, no balloons, no presents, no family. They were in a hurry, my mother said softly before I could ask. They said Brandon found a last-minute cabin deal and everyone decided to go. She smiled as if she was explaining the weather. I told them to enjoy themselves. I knew that smile. It was the same one she'd worn at my high school graduation after my father never showed up. The smile that protected everyone except herself. I walked to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. On the top shelf sat a beautiful strawberry cake. Untouched. She had bought it herself. She had honestly believed everyone was coming. For a second I couldn't move. Then I took the cake out, found the candles in the same kitchen drawer she'd kept them in since I was a little girl, and started warming dinner in the oven. The house slowly filled with the smell of roasted herbs and warm bread instead of cold plastic containers. My mother watched me quietly from the table. "You always stay," she whispered. "I learned that from you," I answered. She looked down at her hands and smiled for real this time. After dinner, we cut the cake together. She closed her eyes before blowing out the candles. "Make a wish," I said. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite understand. "I already did," she replied, "and I think it's finally coming true." I laughed, assuming she meant having one peaceful birthday with me. I didn't realize she was talking about something much bigger. The next morning, just after 8, a black SUV stopped in front of the house. 2 professionally dressed strangers stepped onto the porch carrying a leather portfolio. One of them smiled politely. "Mrs. Linda Carter?" My mother nodded. He placed the portfolio on the dining table, looked directly at me and said quietly, "I think both of you should hear this together." At that moment, I still believed this visit had nothing to do with my family. I couldn't have been more wrong. My mother invited them inside and poured fresh coffee as calmly as if they were old friends stopping by for breakfast. The older gentleman introduced himself first. My name is Robert Hayes, and this is Melissa Grant. We're here on behalf of Heritage Community Foundation in Nashville. I had heard of the organization. They restored historic buildings and funded community projects across Tennessee. I just couldn't imagine what they wanted with my mother. Melissa opened the leather portfolio and carefully slid several documents onto the table. Mrs. Carter, she said gently, everything is ready if you're still comfortable moving forward. My mother nodded without hesitation. I am. Then Robert looked at me. Your mother requested that you be present because this decision directly involves you. I felt my stomach tighten. What decision? My mother reached across the table and took my hand. 6 months ago, I donated the old Carter farmhouse and the 20 acres surrounding it to the foundation. I stared at her. The farmhouse had been in our family for nearly 70 years. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every childhood memory I treasured. They all lived there. Before I could speak, she continued. I didn't give it away, she said softly. I gave it a future. Melissa smiled and turned one of the documents toward me. The foundation is restoring the property into a community culinary and education center. Local families, students, and veterans will use it for cooking classes, job training, and food programs. Then she pointed to another page. Your mother added one condition. I looked down. At the top of the page were the words, Program Director, Emily Carter. I don't understand, I whispered. Robert answered. Mrs. Carter insisted that after the restoration, you would oversee every community program held on the property. You'll help preserve your family's values and ensure the center always serves people the way your mother has her entire life. I looked at my mother in disbelief. Why me? She smiled through tears. Because everyone else loved what the farmhouse was worth. She squeezed my hand. You loved what happened inside it. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my phone buzzed. The family group chat had exploded with new messages. My cousin Brandon had posted a picture from the cabin. Aunt Carol replied underneath, Can't wait until we finally decide what to do with Grandma's old property. Another cousin added laughing emojis. They were already dividing something they believed would someday belong to them. None of them knew the papers were already signed. None of them knew the property would never become anyone's vacation home or investment. As Robert gathered the documents, he looked at my mother and smiled. I've worked with hundreds of families, he said. But I've never seen someone protect their legacy with this much wisdom. My mother simply looked out the window. They'll come back, she said quietly. They always come back when they think there's something to collect. I had a feeling she was right, and this time, they were going to discover there was nothing left for them to take. My mother was right. 3 days later, every relative who had been laughing together at the cabin suddenly remembered where she lived. My Aunt Carol called first. We should all get together, she said sweetly. Family is what matters. An hour later, my cousin Brandon texted, Let's have Sunday dinner at your mom's, just like old times. It wasn't guilt. It was curiosity. Somehow they had heard strangers had visited my mother's house. By Sunday afternoon, the dining room that had been empty on her birthday was suddenly full. Everyone smiled. Everyone hugged her. Everyone acted as though they had never left. Robert and Melissa arrived 10 minutes later. The room went completely quiet. Robert placed a folder on the table and addressed everyone politely. Mrs. Linda Carter asked us to share this announcement with the family. My uncle leaned forward, clearly expecting good news that included all of them. Instead, Robert explained that the Carter farmhouse had officially been transferred to the Heritage Community Foundation. Every legal document had already been recorded. The property would become a community center serving local families for generations. Then he added one final sentence. Mrs. Carter appointed Emily Carter as program director and permanent guardian of the family's community mission. The silence felt endless. What? Aunt Carol finally whispered. You gave away our inheritance? My mother didn't raise her voice. It was never yours. Brandon stood up so quickly his chair scraped across the floor. You should have discussed this with the family. She looked directly at him. I tried to celebrate my birthday with my family. No one stayed long enough. No one answered. Because no one could. The truth was sitting right there in the middle of the table. Not in a legal document, but in the memory of one cold meal they had left behind. For the first time in my life, I watched every excuse disappear before it was spoken. One by one, they quietly picked up their coats and walked toward the front door. just like they had walked away on my mother's birthday. Only this time, no one stopped them. After they left, my mother carried the untouched takeout container from her birthday out of the refrigerator. She looked at it for a long moment before dropping it into the trash. Then she smiled. I've been holding on to that for the wrong reason. A few months later, the old farmhouse reopened as the Carter family community kitchen. Children learned to cook there after school. Veterans shared meals together every Thursday evening. Neighbors who had never met before became friends around the same tables where our family once gathered. Every time I unlocked the front door, I thought about that birthday, the day my relatives left my mother with a cold meal, without realizing they had also walked away from the greatest gift she could ever leave behind. If this story taught me anything, it's this. The people who stay when there's nothing to gain are the ones worthy of carrying your legacy. Love isn't measured by what people inherit. It's measured by who shows up when it matters most.